Rockstars, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode on how to develop confidence. Confidence, as you know, Rockstar, is one of the key elements of being successful. When you think of a powerful leader, you always imagine someone who's confident, not necessarily arrogant, but at least confident in their capabilities, that they can make an impact. And so that comparison that we make oftentimes puts us in a place where we feel less than. How many people are listening to this right now feeling a sense of imposter syndrome, the sense that they're really pretending to be something that they're not? And if you're experiencing any kind of failure or invalidation from your team or in your personal world, it's only going to make it more real for you that you don't feel confident, that there's something wrong with you or you'll never be as good as other leaders. Well, listen, Theodore Roosevelt said, anyone can be a powerful leader. Some people are born natural leaders, but rock stars, I am not one of them. I was told that multiple times by various coaches in a nice way, of course. But the thing that they always reiterated with me in particular was that I was coachable and trainable. So if you're listening to this episode, you're coachable and trainable, because why else would you be listening? So I want to instill some hope in you. And we're going to teach you how to get confidence as a leader right now in a very short amount of time by quoting a guy named Dan Sullivan. The journey to confidence as leaders begins with a process called the 4 C's. The last C is having confidence. So where does it all begin? I want to challenge you right now, Rockstars, as you're listening to this episode right now, what are the things in your life that you are tolerating that don't align with you? Because guys, listen, we're only as great as we tolerate. I'm going to say that one more time. You are only as great as you tolerate. And there's things in your life that you're tolerating. And maybe there's some things that you're tolerating, but you're working with. That's okay. Don't beat yourself up. But you know what those things are. Something came to mind right away. And I'm willing to bet if you give it some more time, there's things that you're tolerating that you're not wanting to look at because it's embarrassing for you to see. Well, if any of that's true for you, which is going to be every one of you, welcome to the club. I'm the president. And if I can overcome anything, so can you. And so Dan Sullivan teaches this concept of the first C being a commitment to making a change. So let's talk just a second about commitment. When we make a commitment to making a change for either fixing something that we're tolerating, or maybe we're doing fine, but we just want a greater impact or a different growth strategy for ourselves or someone else, well, we have to commit to that change. One of my favorite quotes is that oftentimes change doesn't occur until the pain of not changing exceeds the pain of change. So we have to get so miserable, and this is the human experience, before we're willing to commit. But people who are successful understand that they can skip that part of waiting for not changing to get so miserable before they make that change. They understand they can cut right to the change by making a firm commitment. How do we make a commitment? Well, you got to tell somebody about it. We've got to write it down. We've got to look at it all the time. So what I have found is that the more I've made it known, the more penalties I make in my life around punishing me for failing at a commitment equals the greater success I'm going to have at keeping it. So I'll write down my goals every year on a mirror. I was taught this a decade ago. I have these things focused, a measurable win, something that is doable. I don't want to lose 1 million pounds in a year, but maybe 10, like something I know I can do with a minimal to moderate level of effort. And I put it on that mirror and I set myself a realistic time frame. And then I tell people about it. And then I change my environment. Guys, when we make commitments, one of the greatest tools we can make for creating success is to adjust our environment to help it make it easier for us to be successful. So for example, if I am going to want to get healthier, I want to eliminate all the food in my house that isn't going to be in alignment, because environment absolutely predicts outcomes. Hey there, rock stars. Are you sick and tired of hiring expensive front office staff to spend months training them only to find out that they don't meet expectation, or worse, to have them quit on you, leave you in the lurches only to repeat the cycle? Then welcome to Virtual Rockstar, the only service created by a private practice owner for private practice owners and leaders to help them build their dream teams. Let us hire your next virtual rockstar for you overseas. These virtual assistants will blow your mind. Not only are they more talented and committed, but they're a lot more affordable, and they can do all sorts of tasks from phone receptions, medical billing, patient scheduling, insurance verification, marketing, payroll, and more. And the best part is, Rockstars, not only are you going to save between $15,000 and $20,000 of profit per hire per year, you're going to bring a family out of poverty. So stop tolerating less than you deserve and start building your dream team with Virtual Rockstar. To learn more, email info@virtualrockstar.com. Again, that's info@virtualrockstar.com. There was a study that was done recently where a group of researchers wanted to see the impact of personality as it pertained to environment. So what they did is they found people in the streets of New York, and they went up to random people and they would hand them either a hot drink of coffee or tea or a cold drink. Okay. And the researchers controlled it to where the people going up did it identically. They'd walk up and just say, "Hey, ma'am, can you hold this for me?" And when they held the cup, they'd walk away. And a minute later, someone would come up and say, "Could you please describe the personality of the person who came and handed you the drink?" And 80% of the people that were given a hot drink said that the person who showed up was warm and friendly. 80% of the people who were given a cold drink said that the person handed it to them was cold and distant. Our environment not only precipitates our success, but our perception of reality. And that's a different conversation for a different day. But when we make a commitment, we want to make it known, change our environment, and write it down and stick it somewhere where we're reminded constantly, almost programming ourselves to get there. Because once we make a commitment, then we have to find the courage to figure out the problems that we haven't figured out before. For example, one of my biggest decisions I ever made was paying a coach tens of thousands of dollars that I couldn't afford to make the change I wanted to make in my business. That tens of $1,000 effort returned on investment 10x, 20x, 50x. Because once I paid attention. Ever since then, I've never not had a coach. I've had over 30 coaches in the last 20 years. And every time I've paid, it hurts a little bit. Every time a little bit less, but man, I'm telling you, when we pay attention. And when we make a commitment of that magnitude, we find the courage to find a way. And what happens with courage is that we keep going. And so we try this thing called repetition. And in repetition, we develop capability, which is the third C. So once we make our commitment, we find the courage, and now we've got some capability. And as that capability grows, guess what, rock stars? So does your confidence. So don't sit back and compare. I would say I'm adding my own flavor to the 4 C's by adding a 5th C, which is the bad C, comparison. The way to destroy that cycle from commitment to confidence is to compare ourselves to anyone else on any level, period. I mean that, rock stars. There is no use in comparing our current situation with any other human being because we're snowflakes. Everyone's different. Their capabilities, their strengths, their gifts, their talents, everyone's so different. So when you see someone killing it at the game of life, especially at a younger stage, it can be intimidating and just demoralizing to the point where failure is inevitable. Remember, environment is the greatest predictor of success. So eliminate our environments from situations and people where we are going to compare ourselves to them. Stay, however, in a state of comparison to your past successes. The only comparison that's good, if not just good, but necessary in helping us go from commitment to capability and then to confidence, is to compare our current actions to where we were a year ago. So I'm going to do an exercise with you as you're listening to this or driving in the car. For a moment, think back. I want you to think back a year ago. Where were you? What were you doing? Okay. What was your family situation like? What was your social situation like? Right? Think about the last year. What have you learned in that year? What were some of the challenges that you overcame and trials that you faced? What were things that you learned from that? What are things that you can do today that you couldn't do a year ago? Okay. Now, you've got those in mind. I want you now to go back 10 years. So, where were you 10 years ago right now? Think of today's date, or at least the year. 10 years ago, where were you? What were you doing? And I want you to think about the highlight reel of that last decade. What were some of the major challenges that you faced? What were some of the things that you overcame and learned? What do you know now that you didn't know 10 years ago? What do you have now that you didn't have 10 years ago? Look what you've done, Rockstar. Look what you've overcome. Look what you've learned and who you are today. That comparison, that mindset is what we call a growth mindset. We compare ourselves only to our previous self. And yeah, man, when we start looking forward from that place, that's where we can dream big. And I want you to dream big. And I want you to know that you matter, that you are worthy of that thing that you want, of who you want to become, of whatever it is you want to build for yourself, for your family, for your future, for your business. Because you are someone who really matters, not just to yourself, but to others. So as you are looking at this thing called confidence, it's less about developing it, and it's more about peeling back the crap that's keeping you from seeing it. And yes, there's this thing called making commitments that helps us develop the courage to make sure that we can continue to gain more capabilities and ultimately have that confidence. But at the end of the day, you don't need any of that. And that at the core is who you are. You are worthy and enough just because you're you. So as you're looking at your future and you're making your goals and your plans, go back in time and see what you've overcome and then determine what you really want. And start recognizing what's getting in your way. What are you tolerating that's getting in the way of that? And don't feel bad that you don't know how to handle it because you're just missing the commitment to make a change. You'll figure it out. You always do. Rockstars, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you would like, I would love to see commitments that you're going to make in the comments below as a way of documenting it. Just let me know what it is. And if I can help in any way, let me know, because I know what it's like to be in that position. I'm just in it with you, and I'm here to help in any way I can. That's who I'm committed to being. Guys, thank you for taking time to listen to today's episode. If you found today's information to be useful, could you take a minute and help me? I would love it if you could leave a podcast review in your app so that other people who are looking for this information can find it. Plus, my dream is to have the largest network of medical entrepreneurs and leaders in the world so that together we can change healthcare to make it better for all. So in addition, if you can think of anyone that you could send this to, not only would that mean a lot to me personally, but it would build this network so that we can make healthcare the way that we want it.